Welcome back. Well, today we have news that is hot off the press. This is out of Toronto, Canada. 9 hours ago, it hit the paper. And this is about Dr. John Doyle. He's a medical doctor, and he's providing answers to Jehovah's Witnesses, or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses for that matter, that they don't want to ask. Questions that no one wants to ask, but should ask when it comes to your life, and that's regarding blood. So let's get right into it. Where does this information come from? It's the Good Men Project. The Good Men Project is a website that examines what it means to be a good man in today's society. So we need some more good men. So let's look at what the Good Men Project has to say. We'll open that up a little, bring that up a little closer for you to see what's going on. Now, straight from the doctor, Dr. John Doyle answers questions Jehovah's Witnesses want to ask. What are some of the crucial questions about blood and alternatives to blood many Jehovah's Witnesses want to ask, but don't? Ask John. December 26th, 2023, by Scott Douglas. Okay, I'll pin this article in the descriptions. Okay, so by Dr. John Doyle. Dr. John Doyle, MD, answers questions Jehovah's Witnesses want to ask. Question. These blood components allowed by the Watchtower Society aren't really blood, are they? These blood components that they're allowing? They're not blood, are they? Answer. They are derived from fractionating blood, and so are blood products, by definition. So what's the Watchtower doing here? Question. Aren't there always alternatives to blood? Answer. Very often there is. A patient with a high blood count or hemoglobin concentration can sometimes tolerate large blood losses as long as the remaining blood is diluted with the appropriate saline or other balanced salt solutions, so that the amount of circulating blood volume is still approximately the same. Of course, the diluted blood cannot carry oxygen as well as it did earlier, but once the hemoglobin concentration falls below 6 grams per dl, the risk of organ injury or death from oxygen deprivation rises to the point that few physicians would ordinarily withhold blood. So I guess the problem is it cannot carry the oxygen that blood can. Now, for example, in one study of a witness surgical patients who needed but refused blood transfusion, over 60% of those with a hemoglobin concentration under the 6G died. Full data are given on one of my web pages. By the way, efforts to make true blood substitutes that carry oxygen, which includes salt solution, he says salt solutions do not carry a significant amount of oxygen. So that's the problem, folks. These substitutes are made from discarded human blood and should be available in 5 to 10 years if all goes well. So, now question. Does blood kill more people than it saves? And what about AIDS, and what about all the diseases that blood carries? You know, these are some of the questions that Jehovah's Witnesses ask. Okay, so answer. We all know that the blood transfusions are not risk-free. Indeed, nor are the drugs used to treat diseases entirely risk-free. Like, we all know that. There's a list of side effects always. It goes on to say, even latex surgical gloves can cause a severe allergic reaction in some individuals. He says, one of my patients almost died from this during routine surgery. Fortunately, we recognized the problem and she responded to the treatment. Now, the whole bloodless surgery movement, which he says I enthusiastically support, see his web pages on the topic, is aimed at reducing potential complications from blood transfusions. And as a result of the AIDS and the hepatitis scare in the 1980s, physicians have thoroughly revised their thinking about when blood transfusions are appropriate. And he says, see more of my papers on this. The fact is, coupled with the availability of new tests for bloodborne pathogens, puts the benefits to risk ratio for blood transfusions at an all-time high. In my opinion, the ratio of lives saved to lives lost from blood transfusions is now likely many thousands to one. So many thousands are saved to maybe one lost. So they're saying that like blood has become safer. He's going to go on and talk about this. Question. The witness who died after refusing a blood transfusion would have probably died anyway? Blood doesn't save lives, does it? Answer. In some cases of severe injury, terminal cancer, 95% burns, smashed in head, for instance, transfusing blood to optimum levels may only increase the chance of survival modestly. In other cases where there is no concurrent problems besides the severe anemia, the bleeding from an ulcer that has been surgically fixed, or bleeding from a cut artery, for instance, a blood transfusions may be genuinely life-saving. The benefits of blood transfusions depend strongly on the clinical context. Let's say a cesarean, where there's a lot of blood loss. Question. Do doctors want to use blood to cover up sloppy surgical techniques? Remember, Jehovah's Witnesses were always kind of telling us that kind of stuff. When they get us to sign those blood cards, they'd show videos and things like that. So I'm interested to see what the answer is here. Answer. Surgeons, like lawyers, car mechanics, teachers, and golf pros, all vary in capabilities. As an anesthesiologist, I have noted wide variations in the skills of surgeons in reducing blood loss. Many hospitals have an audit process to let surgeons know when their patients consistently require more blood than average. So, still, some surgical procedures, he's naming some brain surgery, spinal surgery, for example, are associated with large blood losses even in the best of hands. Even then, prednisone, autologous transfusions, can sometimes be used to reduce the risk of disease transmission. However, in the final analysis, patients cared for by surgeons that are sloppy about the prevention of surgical bleeding will on average require more blood transfusions than those cared for by meticulous surgeons. So all he's saying is, you're going to get good surgeons and bad surgeons. So do your homework. Surgeons probably have star ratings, maybe. Some areas. You can do your research on them. Questions. Do doctors make more money by ordering a blood transfusion? Answer. No. At least not in Canada. Question. Doctors have substitutes for blood that work just as well, don't they? Answer. No, not in terms of oxygen transport to organs. This situation may change in 5 to 10 years, however, with synthetic blood made from discarded human blood. You see, folks, they're working on this, but it's going to be discarded human blood. Watchtower's not going to like that. Still. So, question. I read that blood transfusions have a lot of complications, especially if someone has cancer. This proves that they're a bad medicine, doesn't it? Answer. I've written about the complications of blood transfusions in one of my web pages, but these complications do not make blood transfusions to be bad medicine in any more than the fact that general anesthesia or antibiotics have the potential complications that could make them bad. Like you might as well call the whole thing bad, is what he's saying, because everything has side effects. Now, question. Doctors are unknowingly being used by Satan to test my faith. This is a typical Jehovah's Witness question, right? It goes on. In times past, they used to believe that taking blood out of a person was the best way to treat them. Now they want to transfuse blood from another person into them. Why should I believe them? This is all from Satan. Question, right? Answer. A good doctor will take the time to explain why a transfusion is, in their opinion, necessary. If you think your doctor is an agent of Satan, he or she would likely not be upset if you sought out another doctor instead. So if you're calling your doctor Satan, they don't really want you as a patient. I wouldn't want you. So be careful, because it's hard to get a good doctor, and you can mess that right up if you're calling everything Satan. Okay, question. What the Bible and the Watchtower Society have to say about blood is more important and accurate than what doctors believe about blood, right? Answer, more importantly, possibly, more accurately, unlikely. There you go. So the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, they're not a medical institute, are they? Did Jesus say set up a kingdom on earth and get into the blood transfusions, get into the medical stuff? No, they're not supposed to be. In fact, we all know that they're dipping their hands into areas that is costing people their lives. And there's blood guilt here, folks. There's blood guilt. You want to talk about blood. Okay, so question. Isn't it true that red blood cells don't carry oxygen for the first 48 hours or so in an emergency because it's foreign blood? Answer. That is complete nonsense. The red cells begin transporting oxygen immediately. So, who told you that? Watchtower? Question. What tests are applied to donated blood to protect against transmitting blood-borne pathogens? Answer. The following information from the Canadian Red Cross website is right here, can provide the answer. Blood donations are subjected to many complex tests. The Canadian Red Cross will test your donated blood to see if it has signs which may be associated with some diseases. It is done as part of our efforts to determine if your blood can be used for transfusion into a patient. For example, some of the routine tests which are currently done on all blood donations are hepatitis B, hepatitis C, human immune deficiency virus, HIV-1, HIV-2, the viruses that cause AIDS, human T-cell lymphotropics versus LV1. It can cause a rare form of leukemia. So they do tests, and syphilis. And blood testing in the USA and the rest of the Western world is similar. Okay, question. How likely is it that a blood unit intended for transfusion is tainted? Answer. In an article in the Toronto Star, November 28, 1997, the following information was reported. The data is Canadian. 1 unit of blood out of every 900, well, almost a million, but 913,000 is now tainted. For hepatitis C, 1 unit in every 100,000 is likely tainted. For hepatitis B, 1 unit in every 60,000. The article quoted Dr. Graham Shear of the Toronto Hospital as saying, these are small risks, but they are not zero. But blood can never be 100% safe because it is a human-derived product, like anything else. It is enormously safer than it has ever been before, and we continue to put it in place new and more sophisticated lab tests that can reduce those risks even further. Dr. John Doyle, MD, of the Toronto Hospital and the University of Toronto. So I found it interesting that there's been some deaths in Canada, and now these doctors are speaking out. They're writing articles. They're trying to answer questions regarding the blood transfusions and some of the questions that Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses will have, because we've been indoctrinated with the Watchtower. And the Watchtower is getting their fingers into people's lives where it's not necessary, and it's costing lives. And it's serious. And if you want to do a little bit of research and find out that in the Bible, in 1 Corinthians, Paul was instructing the followers, if you go into the city, you can buy meats and stuff that was sacrificed to idols, byproducts that would have byproducts in it. He says, he was explaining the whole thing, and we've done video after video on blood. And if you want to know more, I'll pin a video at the end of this video that you can watch, and it'll explain the blood doctrine. But that's all we have today, folks, for the news. So until next time, keep living your day with love. Bye for now.